I like your shirt.
Isn't that nice?
How are you doing, Michelle? Good, good. So Jim had a present for you, Genevieve.
Yes.
That's what I heard.
So my arrow building guy decided to make something for you.
Okay.
Guess what they are?
Arrows. Did I guess right?
You did.
Okay. Ooh,
Oh,
they're
wow.
green.
Holy cow. They look like your size of arrows.
Yeah.
Yep, and I got the specs from your dad. So they should be reasonably close to the same weight.
To what you're already
that's
shooting.
cool.
How cool is that? Let me check them out. Oh, wow.
They are heavy dudes.
They feel good, do they?
Yeah. I like that finish. That's nice.
Yeah, they're cool. They are Reaper shafts. It's AJ's custom arrows, but they're a little bit stiffer than zombie slayers. They're a lot more durable. Like I've hit them, and instead of shattering like zombies do, it's just chipped them. So they should last quite a while.
They should
They
do a
feel
lot
real
better than
sturdy.
your dad's cobbled together pro flights you've been
Yeah,
using.
some of them are all chipped on the ends.
I think
and
you're
they're
down to
not
like
quite,
3 of them.
They're not cut straight on the end. Yours
Oh,
are.
stop.
I'm not sure what the grain per inch is on them, but they're more than zombies.
Everything.
Well,
So
thank
when you
you.
reach out past your standard
check
20
out
yards,
these
you're going
bad
to really
boys
like
he
it.
made me.
Oh. Those are pretty sweet.
Aren't they nice?
Oh, man, they are. Oh, check that out.
Oh.
That's awesome.
Look at the ends.
Look at that.
You should get something like that.
Those are some
So
pretty
anyway,
nice looking.
they're for you.
Oh, no way. Thank you. Oh, I didn't know I was getting something out of this. That's awesome. Well, thanks. Man, now we got like matching arrows. Check it out.
Yeah.
These look,
Mine are little.
yeah. They even look like these are SWAT friendly.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They're
Oh, check it out. That's awesome.
yeah,
Well,
they
thanks a
got
lot.
Little X1s on the ends of the arrows on the rack.
I see that. That's slick.
They're 19 inch. You should be 475 with your 150 grain heads.
Oh, okay.
Because I remember you saying you had 500, but you didn't really want 500.
It just ended up at 500. Yeah. Yep.
So they're built. I think they were 475.
So here they are. Check out these new arrows. The new arrows for the SWAT X1, the Enforcer. I'm excited to use these new arrows. I put on here SWAT X1 AJs and got the Rage sticker. You know, I don't use Rage anymore, but I really, really do like the Rages. I think if you're using them, good for you. This is what we've been using. A totally acceptable, a totally awesome arrow, the Dragon Claws. And remember, we've been shooting these things, shot a big buck with these in Maryland, big buck in Pennsylvania, and my bear this year, a spring bear up in Manitoba. No problem, no match for a 500 grain or so arrow, the Dragon Claw from Wyvern Creations. Now, when we look at the other arrows, the arrows from AJ's, for example, this collection of arrows, in my case here, this will be what I'm using this year. We're going to use them because I've been shooting them in the backyard and they are performing perfectly. So this is an outfitted arrow. Now has the Vert Coyote Luminoc. Everybody's happy with that. This is arrow number 7. I number my arrows so I can tell them apart. I keep records in the backyard to make sure that they're performing, and if I see any inconsistencies, I have record of that and I can go back to it. I like 150 grains up front. That's what I usually do. The 3-inch Swhacker. You guys know all about that. You're tired of hearing about it, I am sure. But you'll notice one thing about these new arrows is that little silver dot on them. These arrows are all spine indexed.
Ooh.
Now, some people already know what that is. A lot of you do. I talk about it from time to time. Spine indexing is essentially that when they make these arrows, one portion of that arrow shaft is going to be stiffer than the rest of it, okay? It's like the spine, right? The spine is the stiff part of your body or whatever. What happens is if you put that spine up or down, then when it goes down the rail, it's going to bunch up this way or it's going to bunch down or whatever. The pressure of these crossbows, when you pull the trigger, there's so much energy there that it'll sort of bend this arrow a little bit. And so it comes off the rail a little wobbly, right? It's got to correct itself. By shooting it the same way every time, you're putting the spine in the same position, and that way it goes down range the same, and the compensations that you make in your shooting, whether it's the scope or what have you, those compensations will be consistent from one arrow to the next. All of these arrows, all 12 of them, have been spine indexed. And what that means is they are going to perform pretty much the same. You know what I'm talking about, right? You get a dozen arrows and 4 of them just don't fly like the other 8, that kind of thing. That's because those spines are not aligned. Like if you've got the spine on most of them like this, and then all of a sudden you're shooting some of them with the spine off to the side, there can be a really stark contrast between the two of them. You get that one arrow that just shoots 4 inches high, or just shoots 4 inches to the right. Knock tuning is a way to correct that. I've talked about that before. You start turning the knock and use a different cock vane, that kind of stuff, and keep rotating it until such time. You got to rotate the knocks too. Remember, don't forget that. That's why they call it knock tuning. But you're going to rotate those knocks using a different cock vane each time, going to this one, going to that one, see which one shoots consistently with the rest of the arrows, and then adjust your knock accordingly and just shoot it that way. Mark it on the vane, that kind of thing, or put new vanes on. These ones all have the white vane. In the SWAT X1, the Enforcer, that vane is going to go up. In most crossbows, that cock vane goes down, right? But either way, you want to line it up with your knocks. All right, the arrows I was using out of the SWAT X1, the Dragon Claw, upside down, but with a Burt Coyote Luminoc, and a 150 grainer field point right there. Total arrow weight, 498.2 grains. 500 grains, shooting around 350 feet per second. These are a little bit lighter. Okay, these arrows are a little bit lighter. Custom arrow, Death by Bunjie logo, Burt Coyote Luminoc, and a 150 grainer field point right there. Total weight, 478.7 grains. Now I'm around 478 grains. I've dropped off around 20 grains or so, and let's run it through a speed test to see how they perform. All right. We'll just see how it goes. Kaboom. Brand new arrows. And we're going to put them through here, 478 grains as opposed to the 500 grainers. We're going to push that on to fire. Are you ready?
Yep.
Boom. Dead bullseye. 360.
360 even.
So we're like 20 grains, made a difference of 10 feet per second. We're up to 360. Pretty nice, huh? I'm totally happy with 360 feet per second out of these arrows. Speed's important to me, okay? It wasn't always, but it is now. And I think that speed and overall momentum that you get is very important.
Today is gonna be the day. He's not gonna get away from Bunjie. Death by Bunjie.
Bit of extra speed with these, moving it up to 360 feet per second, tells me that even if that deer is alert, like my Pennsylvania buck, looking at me, watching the crossbow deliver that arrow, that buck this year at 360 feet per second, that extra 10 feet per second might make the difference where that buck at 32 yards can't duck the string at all. Okay, I get it, Rich. You know, they match, they got fancy logos, you know, they're a little faster, but how do they shoot? How do they perform? Let's go out to the 60-yard backyard and find out. First of all, with Genevieve's arrows, I got to tell you, they shot great for her.
Ready?
Yep. Boy, that's loud.
Dead on.
Is it? Holy crap, it does not get better than that. She's not the long-range shooter, not as much interested in shooting at 60 yards, although recently she's getting more comfortable with it. The arrows that I had built for her, kind of cobbled together, right? Did videos on those a couple years ago. More than adequate to kill deer. She shoots mostly at 20 yards on deer, and she's killed a bunch of deer with those arrows. They performed flawlessly. They shot dead on. She got pass-throughs every time. They're fantastic. But over time, you break them. Over time, you know, you lose them, what have you. This was the year to come up with brand new arrows. And giving her a dozen of those, I really appreciate. All right, out here to inspect the Enforcer's performance with the new arrows. This one is the first one, and I pulled that one. I felt that go. But the other ones, look what we're looking at here. They're all a little bit high. We've got some high left and high right. But they're shooting consistently in terms of elevation, and that's important to me. The windage, you know, I'm pulling it I'm pushing it, or whatever, but the elevation is consistent across the board. That's pretty cool. 20 yards really doesn't require an awful lot to get consistent accuracy at 20 yards. Hopefully everything you're shooting is consistently accurate at 20 yards. 40 yards, 50 yards, 60 yards and beyond, that is where arrows really, we start to separate the men from the boys. You know what I'm saying? That's what separates the flyers from the shooters, right? Off a little bit to the left, pushing it a little bit. Dead on that one down there. That looks great. And this guy right here a little bit to the right, so I pulled it. What's interesting is, with the Burris Oracle X, I didn't have to adjust it at all. I completely reset the scope back to its factory presets. And 360 feet per second was dead on once I got 20 yards dialed in. That's a fixed reticle. You got to go through and do the adjustments and stuff. But once I got it dialed in at 20 yards, the digital part of this scope at 30 yards out to 64 yards, I think my truing points were 30, 45, and 64 yards. It was dead on. I mean, at least to the point where any inconsistency was me. It tells me basically that this Oracle X is pretty much set up out of the factory for 360 feet per second. If you're shooting 380 feet per second, you probably got to make some adjustments. If you're shooting 340 feet per second, you got to make some adjustments, that sort of thing. Kind of shooting through the back of the target here. But at 64 yards, see, 64 yards from that balcony up there, I shot a group like this. That may look at first blush like that's problematic, but at 64 yards, this tells me the arrows are good. I didn't even adjust the truing. We're a little low, a little high, a little right. I think that is me, at least at this stage. I left the scope right where it was. And the funny thing is, too, when I use the practice point that comes with my 3-inch 150 grain Swhackers, the practice point in the backyard, shot the same thing. Previously, what I've had to do is use one setting in the Burris Oracle X for the field point and a different setting for the broadheads. I don't have to do that now. For whatever reason, these arrows are so balanced, they seem to treat the field point the same as the practice point, okay, as the broadhead. Here we are with the practice point, right? The Swhacker practice point, 150 grainer. Look at that. Dead on, 20 yards. We'll walk down here. We will peruse my 30-yard shot without adjustment. I want you to know, I set it on bolt number 2, factory settings. It's pretty much a bullseye, right? The tiny little square, almost touching it, but within the big square. That's good enough for me. Did not adjust. So now we reach out to 45 yards, I think this was. 45, which for the old vintage scopes, right, the speed scopes, that is an odd yardage. So you'd have to be splitting hairs. Look at this. First shot, kaboom, right there in the bullseye on the left one. It's the right elevation. This one was a little bit low. I did not adjust. And the reason I didn't adjust is because I decided to reach out to 64 yards with it, with the Swhacker practice points. And at 64 yards, do you see what I am seeing? Do you see it? 64 yards. That's the right elevation. Now, I was aiming at this dude on the left here, right? And I got to tell you, that is me. That's me pulling it on the bog death grip. But the elevation, if I get down here, you'll see what I'm talking about. That elevation is really good. That's really solid. Little tiny 1-inch maybe circle, and we're right at the right elevation. So really, for the rest of the summer here and leading up into the season, I have to get to know these arrows and work on my shooting skills to make sure that I'm shooting perfectly so that I can shoot up to the very high standards of these custom arrows with spine indexing. The arrows are not the problem going forward. And I'm telling you, I've written about this in my books, and I've talked to people about this, and I always say this. We want to be in a place where deviation, where error comes from us. That's where we want to be. We want to, as the season approaches, eliminate any error that's associated with the equipment we are using. In the end, when we step into the woods, 100% of the credit for our successes should go to us personally. And 100% of the blame for any failures should be our responsibility, and we should take responsibility for that and learn from it and make sure it doesn't happen again. These arrows eliminate a lot of that inconsistency, a lot of the problems I might have struggled with over the years, and they eliminate some of the problems that maybe you are struggling with as well. One arrow not shooting the way that it's supposed to consistently with the other arrows. When you pull the trigger, you gotta know that that arrow is going to go where it's supposed to go. AJ's Custom Arrows, I cannot thank you enough for your donation to the Kingdom of Bunjie, to the upcoming Crossbow season here on Death by Bunjie. And I look forward to success with these arrows. I'm confident that they will perform. I'm just hopeful I can live up to the high standards set by these arrows. These arrows are more accurate than I am. The problem with really good arrows is they kind of expose my inadequacies. What a beautiful yard. That's not so bad. These are trimmings that I'll run over with the lawnmower, but I've been push mowing this all summer, man, getting in shape for the hunting seasons. You can't beat it. And right there's the crossbow balcony, a little over 60 yards away, right here in a 60-yard backyard. Ooh, pretty cool. What a beautiful day, though. Check out that sky. You gotta love it. Make the best of it. Until next time, all hail Bunjie.